Ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, fellow citizens of work from home, good afternoon. Sorry, good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us and welcome. This is 100-Hour Launchpad CEO Challenge number 8. This morning is a special session. It is a closed-door session, meaning it is exclusive to our friends, in this case, UnionBank. So we welcome our Union bankers here, especially my old schoolmate, the boss, RV De Vera. We will hear from RV very soon. May I ask each one of you to please join me. Let us begin by uniting in a moment of silence. We honor the men and women of our front lines. They are represented in a special way, in a sacred way, by the doctors who have given their lives. We always begin by honoring these fallen heroes. And if I can ask you to linger here a moment, these men and women gave their lives fighting in our medical front lines. I submit, ladies and gentlemen, that we too, you and I, all of us, have our own front lines in this global pandemic. To you and I, a battlefront is entrusted. To you and I, a slice of humanity is entrusted. It is our duty to serve. Consider this. If we open our minds and hearts in a deeper way, we will find battlefront lines that we alone can fight in our own unique way. What is your front line? For us here in Ignite House, we have always served business leaders like you in the areas of growth, innovation, and above all, igniting people and teams to fulfill their greatest promise. Now that was in peacetime. In this time of war, our Ignite frontline is no different, only 3 times more intense. We are here to help these very same leaders fulfill 3 mission-critical duties. First, refocus. We help leaders keep their people and teams focused. At a time of fear, panic, paralysis, the world needs teams who can refocus on what they do best. Second, beyond focus, reorganize. When all that is familiar is lost, all that is comfortable is lost, all that is business as usual is unusual. We need teams who can reorganize and get back to what they do best. And third, act fast. Specifically, we help leaders mobilize solutions quickly, from idea to launch in days. Because think about it. Failure of business leaders in these 3 areas, refocus, reorganize, and mobilize solutions fast, whether it is in supply chain or product or distribution or operations or customer service, or even marketing and sales. Business failure makes life even more miserable for millions of us every day. So that is why we are here in 100-Hour Launchpad. We are, as I said, on our 8th episode ever since this lockdown started. In every one of them, we have challenged ourselves, along with our guests, people like you, to identify burning needs and screaming wants all across your value chain. What are your opportunities that demand zero to market fast? And so we are here. Let us begin today's challenge. I am your host, Andre Yap, founder and CEO of Ignite, House of Innovations, home of innovators. I must confess, I have so thoroughly enjoyed every one of these challenges. I believe you will too. Along with me, please welcome my co-host, the one and only Miguel Aranaz, Managing Partner of Ignite House.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to have all of you here.
Accompanying us, Karen Lopez will lead our magnificent backstage team. Houston, can we have our launch pad, please? We are T-minus 100 hours from liftoff. Oh, that's the first time we're having the sound effect. So let's enjoy a quick story. Ride with me a little bit here before we actually get into the launchpad. Now, this 100-hour launchpad, which we are about to experience, it's both an app and a live web experience combined. It was in fact launched in 100 hours plus 24 hours. So 5 days. We cheated. From zero, or when we first recognized this burning need, to the time we launched, it was 5 days. It was March 12, Thursday, a dark night we will all remember. Our whole team was in Tali, Batangas for 3 days of strategic planning. We were then doing our Q1 QBR, so doing our quarterly review and laying out Q2 KPIs. Fun. Then President Duterte went live on TV. Yes. Okay. I thought somebody was calling me. Then President Duterte, as I was saying, if you remember, went live on TV announcing the metro-wide quarantine, which has now become our enhanced community quarantine. That was Thursday, March 12, around 9 p.m. By Friday, the next morning, still in Tali, we had pivoted our whole strategy and operations fully. Our singular goal was to stay relevant and serve our business leaders fast. That was the precise time we made those 3 commitments to our business leaders. We will help you focus, we will help you organize, and we will help you mobilize and launch fast. That was Friday when we broke up in Batangas and drove back to Manila. Working over Saturday and Sunday, even as the quarantine was due to start on a Monday, we've then launched Wednesday. We made true on our first commitment. We launched this 100-hour service. So, as you can see on your screens, this is presented by Ignite House of Innovation. We are in that unique, or if you want, weird nexus of corporate. We work with big companies. Innovation. We also work with fast-moving startups and visionary founders. Venture capital. We invest our own funds in innovation. And above all, our core and deepest passion is, as our name suggests, to ignite human beings, people, teams, and organizations to fulfill their greatest potential. You will get a taste of exactly what that means in our time together today. We have 2 versions of this 100-hour challenge. The first is open door. We had one yesterday, in fact. It was a blast. I was just talking to this morning, exchanging notes with our CEO guest, the chairman and CEO of IPG Media Brands, including brands like McCann. And she was saying how she got so many good reviews yesterday, and so many people want to actually collaborate with her on the ideas presented. This is the exchange, no? They have people from Australia, Cambodia requesting the app, and UP Broads wanting the app immediately. So we're gonna be in for these times, no? The other type of 100-hour challenge is what we have today. It's a closed door and it's exclusive to UnionBank. I believe that is by request. Ideally, we always want to have these as open doors. No? Now, the goal of these challenges, either way, closed door or open door, is twofold. I was on a quick chat with RV earlier this morning, and I was explaining these 2 to him. The first is to jumpstart ideas into living, breathing innovations. Second, and far more important, is to train and practice business leaders and their teams in the science and madness of going from idea to market fast in days. No? So the 100 hours is not to be taken literally. Some innovations will require 2 times or 10 times those hours. Some will require less. The point is being well practiced in the discipline of sprinting as fast and agile as we can. So as you will discover later on, the first launch of ours was in 5 days, this 100-hour experience. In the succeeding 30 days of the lockdown, we have launched no less than 7 other ventures in the last 30 days, all in response to being relevant to the market. So the rest of this, if we could scroll down, please. So how does this work? Our 100-hour challenge, as you can see on screen, begins with these first 2 hours over Google Meets. Our goal here is simply to jumpstart the sprint. The second, the rest of the sprint and the launch sequence happens on the 100-hour Launchpad app. There is an app. It's on app.100hours.vc. We will not necessarily be using that today, but the rest of it happens there. That's when you take ideas jump-started from here or in the shower afterwards, and you reform into smaller self-driven teams using the Launchpad app. It's a step-by-step process aided by collaborative algorithms, and it will take you through 8 hurdles so you and your teams can launch ventures fast. The third leg is for funding. We are happy to invest in independent ventures that may come out of this, or to co-invest if you are a corporate venture. Our criteria is simple, that you meet the 8 hurdles of the 100-hour Launchpad. So let's now focus on the flow of this webcast. You won't see it on screen. There's a visual here, but you won't see it there. I can spell it out for you. It's F-U-N, fun. We will focus in these 2 hours on the first 5 fun hurdles, which are highlighted in blue. A lot of it has to do with mapping zones of opportunity, no? So how exactly do you and I have fun? Let me introduce now our cast and cadence. Okay, so our cast and cadence includes first and foremost all of you, no? All participants will do solo workouts covering hurdles 1 to 5. Innovation must sprout from the independent thinking of each and every person. And then step 2, we start a peer exchange by hearing from our guest collaborators. In this case, our featured guest to begin with is RV De Vera, and we will have ample time to hear from RV and to plumb the deepest recesses of his mind as to what he believes the zones of opportunity are. Third, we will continue the peer exchange by hearing from a lot of us here. It's a first come, first serve, open mic basis. We want to hear from you. Share with us your solo workouts. And then from there, the fourth point, after hearing from each other, we will give you a chance to go back to our solo workouts and iterate our responses. And then we go from there. Okay? So if we are ready, set, let's launch. Our central theme today, as in every 100-hour challenge, is this. If you were to launch something today, a venture, a project, an initiative, or a pivot of something existing that you already have, what would be your top priority given the market needs and opportunities in the new normal? So this is particularly relevant. I believe, as I understand it, RV and team are at the helm of UnionBank's Fintech initiatives. So that is certainly a starting point for what we might pivot or use as launch pads to launch new initiatives. But we are not necessarily relegated to that. we want to invite you to use your deeply personal experiences, sensitivities, empathies, and compassions in figuring out your own workouts. So to get us through the Launchpad process, I'm going to turn it over to start us off on our solo workouts to Miguel Aranaz. Miguel?
Thank you, Andre. So, good morning again to everyone. The first thing we're going to do is we're all going to do a solo workout. What this means is we'll be giving you 5 minutes to answer the other prompts that we'll be showing on the screen. Now, what exactly are we going to be doing here today? All right. So, this this solo workout's all about zeroing it in on certain opportunities. So we want you to focus on some target stakeholders. Okay, these are users, customers that you care about. These are people that you care about. If you look at the prompt over there, it says describe them that will benefit from our project. Describe the ways that you have encountered them in meaningful ways. And then from there, reflect now on what are their pain points, what are the key pain points of these stakeholders that you want to address. And then from there, we want you to also answer the type of impact you want to have in their lives. We suggest using the from to format, okay, meaning you want to show what the key change you want to happen in their life. So from would be what their current state is, to is their future desired state that I want to bring in. So I guess one thing I want to point out here, make it personal in the sense that let's focus on a stakeholder that you care about, all right? And after this, we're going to have a pair exchange where you'll get to share notes and then learn from each other. So I would suggest probably bring out a piece of paper and and a pen, or if you want to do it on your phone, just write your answers there. Okay. So we'll give you 5 minutes to do this. Andre, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to add that this is usually done via the app, no? But in this case, so as to avoid logging in and creating accounts, we just do it on paper first. And so that's just the clarification. So the fun starts here. Houston, Mission Control, are we ready? Miguel, we're ready?
Yep, we're ready.
Okay, you got your 5 minutes. Give it your best shot. We're counting down to 2 minutes left. Sixty seconds. All right, let's settle back in. Very good, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that solo workout, flexing some muscles, different muscles. Right now, I'm going to throw a wrench that not even my team is expecting. I'm going to treat you to something special. At this point, what we usually do after the solo workout is we're going to start hearing from each other. We will do that. But if you give me something like 7 more minutes, I'm going to take you through a slight detour, which is going to add a lot of value to this experience. And that value will come from you. You tell me if it added value. Okay, mission control, Houston. Can we go to a screen share of 100 hours Launchpad? So this time of pandemic, as I was saying earlier, has led us through these 9 milestones. I just want to share this very quickly. Day 0, Tali Batangas, that story, that was the first milestone. That was the time we committed to leadership in a time of Corona, supporting leaders, helping them to lead in this time. The second milestone was the launch of this 100-hour Launchpad. That was day 5. Subsequently, we have day 10. We launched the 3rd, 4th, and 5th milestone, and so on and so forth. No? Now, I want to, it is not all about just innovation, no? Because innovation is like a tree. Imagine a tree. It's got a lot of branches, but it's got only one root. Innovation is like that. Innovation is the branches. But where is innovation rooted? We also take care of that as part of our offerings in the 9 milestones. No? Okay, so one of these milestones will be very helpful for us. Houston, can we go to, yes, Holy Thursday. So last week was Holy Week. For Holy Thursday, we had a WHOLLY, Holy Thursday, some sort of a full afternoon retreat. So this was done in partnership with a Jesuit priest who used to be the president of the Jesuit University of Kathmandu in Nepal, whose PhD and doctorate is in leadership and organization and innovation. And we made it a particular point to make this retreat spiritual but not religious, meaning you could be agnostic, you could belong to any religion. So I'm going to zero in on a particular part of this experience as a backdrop. So as you can see, we started with measures of success, keywords and images that come to mind and heart when I think of my vision of success for myself. And then if we can scroll down, we shared the Ignite Manifesto, which goes from genius, purpose, and service to mission, collaboration, innovation, and impact, and transcendence. Okay. Now, then we went into the first discernment exercise, which is what I want to share with you. I'm going to read a little bit, if you don't mind. Genius, purpose, service, or simply GPS. If we know our GPS, then we have our own deeply personal navigation system for life. GPS will continuously lead us where we need to go, who we are called to be, for whom. It does not matter what success we achieve in life. Our path to joy and meaning goes through GPS, but only if we pay attention. Waze. You guys remember Waze? I have not seen Waze in the last 30 days. Waze cannot help if we are not listening. It's the same with this thing we call GPS. Every day we are revealed. We are data scientists here, a lot of us. Every day we are revealed new data points and coordinates about our GPS, new pieces of our own puzzle, new threads on the tapestry of I, new stars on the constellation of who am I, why am I here, and what was I born to do? So as part of our Holy Thursday experience, we ran through 10 questions, optional for everybody. I would like now to focus us on 2 of these questions. Question number 2, if you could listen in and ask yourself this. Number 2, life as we know it can change so drastically in only a few hours, a few days, or a few weeks. The world has so many new needs in our new normal. What can I give? What is it in me that is good, that is gifted, that remains in me no matter how much the world changes, that will allow me to stay relevant and keep being a force for good yesterday, tomorrow, and for many tomorrows after? So what is it in me that is good, that remains good no matter how the world changes, that allows me to stay relevant and keep being a force for good to the world? That's a question, if I could allow you to just linger on that a little bit. The world has changed so much, even as we've stayed home all these 30 or so days. What is it in us, each of us individually, no, that can remain a force for good in this ever-changing world? You can just ask ourselves and briefly connect with that question. And then the next question, question number 7, I believe, Houston. Now let's go to the area of pains. What pains have I encountered most meaningfully in my own life? How have my pains been a gift because they allowed me to care deeply? How have my pains moved me to empathy, which is knowing the pain of others? How have my pains moved me to compassion, which is knowing the pain of others and so wanting to act on it? How have my pains moved me to love, which is knowing the pain of others and so wanting to give the very best in myself to heal their pain? If we can, again, especially in the context of what is happening to the world today, reflect on this and what this means to us personally. How have we experienced pain as a gift? Because it has allowed us to be empathetic, to be compassionate, and to be more loving. I'm going to linger here for a few seconds, allow you to let that question sink in. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if I can invite us to then go back to the solo workout. Houston, the solo workout. We're going to give you 2 minutes to go back to your solo workout. This time with the context of those two questions and this point about GPS that we just said. What are your gifts that allow you to stay good, to stay relevant, and to stay a force for good, no matter how the world changes? And then on the other hand, what pains have you experienced that allowed you more empathy, more compassion, to care deeply about things? You don't necessarily have to have exact answers or even the words for those questions. But having connected with those questions, I would like to invite you, dear friends, to please go back to your solo workouts and see if your target stakeholder might have changed. See if your target opportunity, the pain points, might have changed. Be open. Let us start the timer. Let's give it 2 minutes. All right. Back to our cast and cadence. So that completes our solo workout. We had 2 rounds, and now we are ready to do our peer exchange, beginning with our esteemed colleague here, RV De Vera. If I can call on RV to please turn on your mic, and it would be great if we could see you as well. There you go. So RB is going to start us off by sharing his own inputs, what he came out with for his mapping his zones of opportunity in terms of who his target stakeholder is going to be. Again, we go back to the central question. If we were to launch something new today for the new normal, what would it be? So we talk about that in the context, first of all, of who the target stakeholder is going to be, what their pains are, and what is the vision of impact expressed as a from to statement. So I'd love to hear, we invite RV to share with us his thoughts. However, RV, if you could also amplify it with broader strokes of where you're coming from and what your thoughts have been on what has been going on. RV did intimate to me that while he has been used to, prior to the lockdown, the pandemic, always being on talks, very public, that he has purposefully, since the pandemic and since the lockdown, kept a low profile, if not for anything else, just to be in a listening mode, in a take it in mode, no? So RV, if you could tell us also a broader context, personally and professionally, how you're approaching this, how you're approaching zones of opportunity. And interestingly, if the two solo workouts with the GPS and the discernment questions about pains and gifts sandwiched in the middle, if that at all changed or shifted or emphasized anything from your solo workouts. So without further ado, the man we have all been waiting for, if you could also greet our audience, I'm sure they're missing you very much, RV De Vera.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Andre and Miguel, for having me and the team here
Morning.
to engage in this conversation. So, for the solo workout, let me take you through the context. The follow-up questions were also very relevant and hit quite at the center of what we do because just some context. UnionBank. So my team and I work at UnionBank, and we had the Fintech innovations and partnerships for the bank. And of course, it starts with the purpose and the objective of the bank as well. So we are hinged on that. And at a very simple level, let me just say that at the bank, our purpose is really to enable communities. And we do that in the context of banking. So our complete phrase is we want to enable communities through smart banking so that they can elevate their lives and fulfill their dreams. But when you break it down, it's really about being part of a community, enabling that community. And when you ask me, what does that mean? It means collaboration. So immediately the stakeholders in my community are the different ecosystems we serve, the corporates, the SMEs, the fintechs, the startups, our employees, our regulators, our stakeholders, our shareholders. These are all the different, I guess, stakeholders and members of our community whom we serve. And the key objective of these different segments, these different areas, is all at this point, I think, to get a sense of bearing as to where things are going and what to do. So over the past month, we've been able to clearly articulate, I guess, the needs of our customers in three basic steps. First of all, as mandated by the president, banking is an essential utility infrastructure service, the flow of money, and so we're keeping the banking service alive and robust. You have digital payments as the way to go. Obviously, we're also keeping branches open. So a lot of effort is in the day-to-day is funneled into keeping the business open so that our customers can transact and move money. The second, so apart from keeping businesses open and transacting, the second is what is next. For those that are in trouble, how do they maintain a level of survival? And for those who are in a way sure to survive, how do they pivot to become more sustainable? So, I mean, broadly, that's what we see. We see three sets. We see a set that just needs basic banking services. We have a set that are surviving, and then we have a set that are positioned to take advantage and pivot as early as now. The key pain points that these target stakeholders need to face would be in the struggle for survival. It's really cash flows, revenues, and volumes. Customers, they have disappeared overnight. What do they do about trying to substitute revenues, pivot? For others, it's about access to funding. Their other pain points are, do they have enough funding? Some are living off 6 months, 8 months, 12 months runway. And what do they do within those 6-8 months? Some much shorter. Also, the challenges they have, if they were not digital, what do they need to do to get more digital so they can be more efficient and therefore reduce cost, increase operational efficiency? And then the last portion, if you ask me what the from and to, I mean, what we see at a very high level, it's really a lot of cash to cashless transactions. a lot of manual and paper-based transactions will now have to move to digital in a very accelerated manner. From close to open banking, I guess that's the last thing I want to leave. I know it's a little broad, but we can speak to that a little later on as we go through the details. But all of this, I guess, in the spirit of fostering collaboration and, I guess, interconnectivity, interoperability between these communities. Let me stop there, Andre. I mean, that's basically what the output of my solo workout was, and I'll stop there for any questions or directions from you.
So let me throw one at you, RV. I think what you gave us, if I may comment, is as a leader, it's a solo workout, but it's a broad strokes, right? As a leader, this is what you're seeing in the expanse, and it was very well put. I mean, I certainly got a very clear sense. I can echo back to you if I understood correctly, your three stakeholders. Well, first of all, broadly speaking, they are customers. You chose as the key stakeholder, the target stakeholder, your customers. No, let's play it back, and then you stratified them as 2, 3. The ones that just need basic banking, the ones that are on survival mode, and the ones that are on thriving and can jump off. And then for each of those, you mentioned pain points, and then a further set of from to statements. No? And I think that benefits your team because it gives that a very condensed, but at the same time comprehensive view, no, of what's going on. Now, I would like to challenge you further because in the context of a 100-hour launchpad process, no, where we have to output things, we can't possibly be launching on all those strokes, right? So if you were, from a personal perspective, to choose one of those stratifications of target stakeholder, and therefore zero in on their pains, and therefore zero in on the target impact of from to, which one would it be? So that then with that area of focus, that zone of focus, we can then move on to sprinting that to some sort of minimum viable and launching it. Bear in mind, RV, that in this case, you're free to choose whether you're wearing the hat of RV, head of UnionBank Fintech, meaning you would be speaking on behalf of your group, or you could put on the hat of RV just on a personal perspective. This is what I feel closest to. This is what I feel most connected to. And so from the point of view of the 100-hour exercise, this is what I'd like to speak of. Is that a fair question?
That's fair. I think you want to zero in. I try to stay broad to begin with because, our work and our mandate really covers a lot within the bank. But if you wanted to zero in, and I thought about that, I would say it would be, and this might be difficult to dimension in terms of 100-hour output, but maybe you can help me with this. If we're talking about those 3 sets, let's zero in. Let's focus on, I'm sure, the cash and the survival, there's been enough conversation about that. But where I think we can really add more value is in those that are positioned or somewhat within a digital transformation, those companies that are poised to take advantage of what is coming next. Maybe we could paint a picture of how to help those companies with, linkages with certain fintechs, with certain startup solutions, even connecting what we have in the bank right now. That could help focus the discussion as to.
So, RV, of course, I have to remain unbiased one way or another, but I'm glad you picked the sort of thriving and ready to pounce on opportunity set. No, that's always what excites me the most as well.
But we're free to go which way. I mean, it's
Right. No, no. But let's focus on that first, since you brought it up. Let me now, because you suggested what we might offer them, right? Okay, so if you're, in other words, if you have enough cash in the bank, you have a strong enough team, you can really look at restarting business. You know, now that we've gone through, not that we're out of the woods yet, medically speaking, but it's about time that you know, we shifted our focus, you know, as business leaders, from if we are in a position to grow from here, then we should. No, it is incumbent upon us too. So if you focus on those, you were starting to ideate what we could offer them, right? From the spectrum of UnionBank strengths. I would say that maybe let's step back further before we talk about what the potential solutions are. Let me ask you, in your own experience dealing with these types of more progressive, stronger teams or organizations, what would their pain points be given this new normal? Because the solutions are merely emanating from pain points. So part of our core discipline in the 100R and the way we work as you know, our full-time job is to innovate. That's all we do, is really to not take shortcuts and jump into solutions. That's the fun part. Sometimes the bloody part, the not so sexy part, is really trying to understand from point of view of empathy and compassion, what are the problems. So I'm sure you have plenty of experience. As I do, I'm willing to jump in, but let me throw it back to you. When you think about this set, no, that's ready to thrive, what still are their pain points or their gain points right now? Pain or gain, problem or opportunity, but let's really empathize with them. I would suggest here as a methodology, and this is very instructive, Miguel and I always use this, instead of thinking about this thriving set as a generic, ambiguous customer, think of a customer. You may or may not name that customer. Think of them in person, in flesh and blood. Obviously, they are a customer, a human being on behalf of a customer team or customer entity. But think of that person as I am already thinking of a person, a CEO in my case, and think about what their pain points are right about now and in the next 3 to 6 to 12 months in order to take full advantage of this new normal. What would those pain points be?
Okay. Let me start out with a specific CEO, a specific company that's ready for transformation. You know, let's just, I can't reveal the details, but let's just say that he's already purely digital, and he wanted to increase his digital presence and footprint. So his current business is obviously hit because of the situation, but he can weather the storm. So he's already thinking now, this is the right time to invest, to even tech up my company even more.
Pertinent question, RB. Because I've seen a bifurcation of CEOs in this case. Some key CEOs are lucky enough to still be able to operate. Banking, healthcare, yes. Some CEOs, yeah, they have strong balance sheets, but they have zero operations, cannot, right? What's the status of the CEO and his team?
The one with, sorry, no operations.
No, the one you're talking about right now. You have a CEO in mind. Which one are they? Are they operating or not operating right now in the past 30 days?
Operating. But his structure and his business model allow him to, you know, work from home. He's already cloud-based. He's already probably one of the more transformed, and then just really wants to accelerate and get ahead even more. That's rare. I mean, in this situation, there would be rare. But, you know, just to quickly call out, one of the key pain points of those who are ready and want to do it,
yeah,
is actually, if you think about it and you look at the market, it's I wouldn't say a lack of capability or competency, but that is still in a gathering stage. People are learning how to work in situation. So how do you develop, you know, if he wanted to completely develop a mobile app for his business, for example, and take it completely online, no matter how much you wanted to accelerate, sometimes you have to look at what's available in terms of demand and supply and availability. So one, that the context itself is what's preventing those who want to accelerate to go even faster. Do they have the talent? Can they secure the contracts? That's also scary because after we're beginning to see demand pick up, and after or even before COVID lockdown is lifted, Andre, you're gonna see everyone and his mother is gonna want to go into digital transformation, and so they're gonna suck up a lot of the talent already.
Yeah.
Development talent. You're gonna see a dearth of developers. IT, especially them who can work from home. So for me, those who are willing to accelerate, their challenge is to gather the resources and the game plan to do so. And the one who comes up with a plan soonest will be able to access the resources and in fact get ahead.
So what I'm hearing from you, if I can translate or paraphrase RV, diba? In school we were taught to paraphrase a lot. You remember high school? RV and I were high school schoolmates, by the way. So paraphrasing, one could express the pain points of this target stakeholder that we're talking about as two things from what I heard from you. One, they have the resources, their balance sheets are strong, they're digital already, but there is still a universe to be digitalized for their own stakeholder, right? Now, their pain points become talent, number one, talent. Number two, the ongoing processes and disciplines by which they can continuously output more digital transformations. Kasi parang the way I'm understanding you, and I've also experienced this market, is think of concentric circles. So the guy you're talking about right now and his team are in the middle, they're ready. But they have stakeholders themselves. They have customers, they have suppliers, they have partners, they have distributions, and those probably are not as digitally transformed as they are, right? So they have to go out, and they are only as good digitally as their network is good digitally. Right. So they now have to expand out and have the core capability. Dalawa yan, the talent, probably numbering in the several dozens, but also the core capability to deploy that talent into systems, processes, and disciplines that can reach out to the outer circles and keep on outputting digital, di ba? That's a pain point, di ba? So it's talent and processes to be able to do this over and over again. Not once, not twice, but over and over again.
Correct.
Tama ba?
Correct. And an actual plan, because remember, a lot of these guys who are already very digital, Andre, they were planning to, I think most of them, and I'm privy to a lot of them also and their plans, a lot of them are looking to build more infra in 2020. That changes. Now the infra build cannot take another 6-12 months.
Very good, yes.
You need these solutions now. So
what exactly do you mean by infra?
You're talking about, for one, a key component, digital payments. Let's look at that infra, for example. That's essential for any business. You need to make, payments from one bank account to another. Thank God we have the ability to do that now through PesoNet and InstaPay. But if you remember, that's pretty much only a year and a half old, that solution. And even that is not completely fluid, So there's a long story there, but that's payment infra. Yeah. Check imaging, clearing checks through pictures and images rather than physically depositing the check, right?
Yeah.
That's also another form of infra. So these are just some examples of I guess, basic digital payment infrastructures that have to be established. Many are either on the cloud or migrating to the cloud. Many are just beginning to properly catalog and fix their APIs. So all the digital hygiene from a lot of these companies that were ahead, they were looking to build and plan out for 2020. That changes things now because you don't have 2020 to build. You need to execute sooner. So how do you accelerate that? Not that you were just sitting around 6 months ago, right? But how do you accelerate that in this period?
So if you've noticed, RV, we have somehow happily circled back to the same point, you and I, right? Because this is precisely what the whole point is of 100-hour Launchpad. Remember, I said there's two goals. One is to output actual ideas that can be sprinted. More important than that, these 100-hour Launchpads are to train and discipline people in the art and science of moving fast, right? Why? because you and I are talking without having compared notes about that same target stakeholder, the CEO who is poised, who is strong enough with a balance sheet to go forward. Their problem is, I do not have people, and I certainly do not have necessarily the culture and systems to get to the next level, to build all these infrastructures fast, and to do that in such a way that I can penetrate my ecosystem. Because as a business, it doesn't matter if you're strong. If your partners, suppliers, and distributors aren't similarly digitally strong, they will slow you down, right? And so you need now the persuasion capabilities as a CEO to tell your supplier, to tell your supply chain, to tell your distributors, to tell your customers, let's go digital. Because if you're the only one digital in an undigital world, doesn't make sense, right? Okay, so let's park this first. And the beautiful thing, you mentioned community and collaboration, is now let's open the floor up to your team and see what they come up with, or what they've come up with. So, you know naman, our Pinoy situation, RV, when we start opening the floor, sometimes the floor opens, sometimes it doesn't. So you're going to, you know your people. This is a closed door session. So we're going to open the floor, and we hope that voices carry, as the song goes. And if voices don't carry, well, RB will just have to call on people for their solo workouts. Okay, and Miguel Aranaz will be helping us with further probing Q&A. Shall we?
Yeah, so well, as I give them, so my team's online. So guys, I'll give you a few seconds to figure out who will speak first. Otherwise, I will cold call people.
Now he's checking on the list.
No, but before I cold call them, or they volunteer, I think I just wanted to add to that point, Andre, that you talked about the CEO, the community. You know, when we started digital transformation as a bank, we weren't talking about it to our customers. The reason why we've been very vocal about it, it's really not PR, it's not marketing. It's because you hit it on the head. You said you can't connect to your customers if they're analog and you're digital. And we were encountering those problems 3-4 years ago. We wanted customers to go digital because we were digital, but they were analog. So we had to really help them along that process. And that's where this learning comes on, because we've been helping them for years. I mean, it doesn't matter how digital our solutions are. If our customers know zero about digital, we have to handhold them through that process, right? But the beautiful thing is, if you manage an ecosystem of FMCG, and you have the anchor clients, the big ones, and the key supply chain links, then it's much easier to force it upon a whole ecosystem. But now the nice thing about it is this doesn't need a hard sell anymore now.
Yes. The virus did the hard sell for you.
It was a hard sell, and then, you know, I kid with my team that it and actually they also say it took a pandemic, sadly, but you know, digital for us, it was digital or die a long time ago, because there's no way to scale manual. There's no way to promote financial inclusion if you're going to go manual. There's no way to help the country if it's all papel, diba?
Yeah.
So with that, I'll check on the team. Anyone want to share? Anyone who wants to go first? Air, I'm going to call on Erica. Air, since you had the sales team and you're very much in touch with the customers, I think you can kick us off.
I hate you. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Sorry. Actually, I focused on a different segment compared to yours, Arj. I didn't know that we had to take a specific one. So in any case, the stakeholders that I chose are the minimum wage, or the workers that we have, who are the most hit, I think, by this pandemic. The reason being is, you know, like a lot of times the problem is we see a lot of inertia from people who don't want to move into anything that's digital. So I think these guys, since they're in dire need, anything to get help, they will probably do something to do that. Anyway, so yeah, those are the stakeholders that I chose. So it's the minimum wage, the workers, the guys who are in need of government assistance. And the opportunity I see here is because obviously these people, if they don't work, they don't have money, and therefore they can't support their families. So I was hoping to do something for this segment because, as we've seen, there are a lot of government assistance going on from DOLE, DSWD, SSS, but a lot of these people are still complaining that they haven't gotten these funds. So I think the problem lies in non-disclosure, and I'd like to see some sort of transparency in that, and maybe we can help in terms of disbursing the funds and increasing transparency digitally.
Erica, thank you for that. Barring any, RV, I have, sorry, mauna ako on comments here. Just because this is so very topical, I will take this up from the point of view of 2 CEO challenges ago. So yesterday we had one, which was on digital, and Tuesday we had one, which was on jobs ventures. No, so given that some industries and some sectors, whether they are sectors of industry or sectors, demographic sectors of society, there's going to be winners and losers in terms of jobs. Obviously, a lot of losers, no. And you correctly pointed out, Erica, the minimum wage, the day wage earners are going to be in a lot of trouble. They're the first ones laid off. They don't have a security blanket. I mean, we all know their pain points, at least on paper, no. This came up very much. Our guest collaborators then, one of them was Bernie Villegas. He talked to us about sectors where job loss is going to, obviously we focused on this one. Coming out of that session, my team had identified a opportunity that was precisely, the zone of opportunity is precisely what you're talking about, Erica. And from that Tuesday session, we are on track to launch something, a solution, by April 21, I believe. Okay, so we try to practice what we preach. So what is this? One of the Ignite House investee companies, our portfolio companies, is something called My Kuya. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, anybody here, but it's an on-demand marketplace for errands at this point, odd jobs, much like Uber, right? People have spare time, people have no time, so you match them together and you send one on errands and they get paid. And there has been obviously an uptick. Long and short of it is My Kuya is artificially controlling demand right now because they cannot find enough kuyas to satisfy the demand. Long and short, there are 10,000 jobs that can be filled today in the next 24 hours that would give these minimum wage earners twice daily minimum wage on a daily basis, and that can be happen in 24 hours. So I'd like to address that point, that there are ways we can match supply and demand to help these target stakeholders. However, I also want to share with you that the way I personally came to this insight, which eventually leads us to act on this opportunity, is very weird. Same target stakeholder, but I came at it from a different doorway. You might say a different target stakeholder leading to the same target stakeholder, which is this: business owners and CEOs who have to lay off sometimes employees by the hundreds. And as it happened, the night before the 100-hour challenge on Tuesday, I was in a board meeting, and it was late in the evening, and the entrepreneurs that we were talking to were staring, finally, at that point, at 8 in the evening, at the reality that they had to lay off. And I felt their pain. It was so heavy. And so we thought about this as the solution would be compassionate offboarding. If you as a CEO, as a business leader, as a business owner have tried your level best and still you had to lay off people, you offboard them to us, you offboard them to us, and in 24 hours we commit to onboarding them and continuing their income streams at twice minimum wage. And then we will go further by doing what we do in Ignite, which is making sure that they are put on a path where they can look at career and personal growth. So I hope that was a hard sell to anybody, but I just wanted to put into context how we can react and respond and stay relevant to all these pains and all these human beings around us by just asking these questions. Who's the target stakeholder? What are their pains? What is our vision of impact? In my case, I wanted to be able to serve leaders and owners from the pain point of I have to deal with so many problems in this business, and now I have to deal with laying off people. It's heavy on me. To being able to offload that problem off of theirs so that we can take care of their people for them. That was the vision of impact. I hope that was helpful. Erica.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. RV, comments or...
Yeah, no, what just came to mind was, you know, I agree also with what Erica's talking about, you know, the day-to-day problems of the regular people. And what comes to mind again is, you know, the lack of digital payment infrastructure to make that happen. And you know, that's a great initiative, my kuya, and what you're doing there. You know, those things to help our kababayans we're definitely suffering in this time, diba? When I look at even your my kuya solution, I guess at the back of it, you talk about, you know, connecting people, and again, you know, maybe it sounds a little too philosophical, but that connectivity, that's the basis of innovation, and that's what has to grow even more. My worry is there's so many things, from, you know, digital identity to digital payments to healthcare, that the bottom of the pyramid is not getting. But let's go to basics first. Even just funding, payments, diba? They don't all have the capability. Of course, they don't have a bank account. Some don't even have IDs. So they resort to the Palawan money transfer operator type of pickup, which in a way is a very inefficient system. But sorry, I'm regressing, but just to go back, it's a lot of these infrastructure builds that we need to do so that other services can flow on top of it and be much smoother. So yeah, I agree with what she was saying. I guess from my point of view, I just think about, you know, the plumbing to make these things work much better. But definitely we need more tactical solutions to help the day-to-day.
Actually, RV, before we hear from the next one, I just want to throw in, because it reminds me of another venture that we're invested in. This one is Zenia. Zenia is, well, if you've experienced Zenia, you've probably only experienced the tip of its iceberg, no? You've experienced it as a home massage therapy, no? But the full vision of Zenia is bringing healthcare to the home. So from massage therapists, they are now onboarding nurses to be able to bring testing kits, immunizations, etc. to the home. So because 80% of cases for outpatient hospital visits or doctor visits don't really require you to go there. You can be seen at home. No? Now, why is this relevant? From a fintech perspective, speaking about what you just spoke about. David Foote, who is one of the most wonderful technologists and founders.
David, great guy.
Great guy, you know, I love him. But one of the things he did, he has such compassion. You know, on the therapist side, about 70-80% of our therapists in Zenia are, what you call this, single mothers. No? And as with my kuya, the problem with Zenia is we could serve 10 times the demand. But the problem is, can we find and sustain that supply side of therapists and then of nurses? No? And it's a very long story that is wrought with all the pains of growing up poor and not knowing how to keep a professional stature. And part of that is keeping the supply side not at par with the demand side. No, in other words, we could, and David, at the Xenia level, he is creating opportunities for single mothers to earn something in the range of 30 to 50,000 pesos a month. That is life changing, and yet he cannot find enough of these. Part of it is personal finance capabilities. They don't know how to save, or their thinking about income is, okay, I have enough, I can rest. Instead of, hey, I have enough, well, why don't I keep working, right? So I can grow my income base. So one of the things he's done is, obviously all the payments are done instantaneously. Xenia gets paid, the transfer gets done to the, but one of the things, I don't know if this has been implemented already. I hate to quote David Foote in his absence publicly, but one of the things we had been talking about is for every peso that is supposed to be transferred to our therapists, if there could be a pre-agreed upon savings portion of that is not transferred to them, but rather is transferred to a savings pool that then accrues on their behalf. So again, this is another sense in which fintech, such as what you're doing, can be used to bring up lives in this sector of society that Erica is talking about. No?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I love Xenia and I love David. But one thing very, very unique about that business is precisely the founder. He's always had a deep purpose and a long roadmap. Even when I met David 5 years ago, I mean, he was already looking at Xenia to be more a health tech or a wellness.
Yes.
Rather than just massage, and that vision, and then obviously I love how he's supporting the therapists on the other side. I mean, the training, the process, he's very polished that way. But yeah, I mean, perfect example of that. So in our context as a bank, and even the fintechs, and I know some of the components of David's backend there and who he uses for the payments, that's exactly his challenge. I mean, for these people, it's about getting paid efficiently, properly, and then what do you do with that savings? Because the mistake of many who talk about financial inclusion is they think that, okay, if you have a bank account, that's it, you're good. It's financial inclusion isn't about access to a bank account. It's about access to financial services. And a bank account is one component, but whether you can save, whether you can buy insurance, healthcare, whether you can make payments from that account are the different components. So yes, he needs to help his therapists, his nurses, deploy their savings. What about credit? Can they also borrow eventually? So these are the different linkages that we need to build up. I mean, for me as a bank, we have to support these guys with all the different payment, investment, savings infrastructures to allow for that.
Right. I mean, because for David, for example, I mean, just going back to him like in 30 seconds, is if he did not have to build on top of his platform all the plumbing that you're talking about, that makes it easier for him. He can take care of what he really needs to take care of, not this plumbing that he and Mike Kuya and 10, 20, 30 other ventures are needed. So this is a case in point about the plumbing and infrastructure that needs to be built. Shall we call on others?
Yes. Takers in the audience.
Hello.
Brian.
Hi, may video. Hi, yeah. Actually, timely yung discussion on Xenia because I was actually going to talk about healthcare. I think that's a segment I personally haven't really looked into. Just recently, my daughter had a fever for the past 3 days. And syempre, we were worried, diba? So we were texting the pedia, and we had to have lab results. We need to we need to look for a med tech basically. So it took us a whole day finding one, and we would go to the village. And I realized that I think that's something that would be the new normal. And I was looking for solutions. Kasi parang, we had a med tech go to the house, pero let's say, kailangan ng urinalysis, but, syempre, hindi pa nag-wee yung baby ko. So, we had to wait. And it's so hard to catch, syempre, the urine and bring back the clinic. So, I think solutions like that, definitely. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm still trying to find an angle as to how we can participate, maybe to the payment space there, no? But definitely more health tech, healthcare solutions. That's something that piqued my interest the past few days. I want to get your thoughts on what else is there coming up.
RV, I didn't quite get the fullness of that. I think I can piece the puzzles together, but I don't know. You know Brian better. Maybe you know what he's talking about.
Well, he's talking about healthcare solutions that are probably more, I guess, to be a little broad about it, to a little more healthcare solutions that are a little more digital in nature. So anything from online insurance to telehealth, telemed, online digital consultation, things like that. What hits home for me is that obviously out of the 110 million Filipinos, how many have access to real healthcare and how many can even call upon it, right? So we've, as a bank, always wanted to look at digital healthcare solutions, but we also know that we are, a banking and a tech company. So our domain expertise is around the banking functions, payments, security, identity, and we're not healthcare experts, right? So
Right.
we've always been wanting to work and enable with different healthcare solutions, and there are many, healthcare, and I think that's the bright light here. You're going to see health tech really take a forefront. So other than certain fintech services that are basic, that require payments and none of the cute stuff, you're going to see basic fintech services thrive, but you're also going to see health tech start to make headway. If only because pre-pandemic there was no use case for it. No, now you actually do. So I think that's the biggest pain point, if you will, Andre, or challenge really, adoption of technology. There was no real impetus or need before, right?
Yeah.
Of course, in the banking industry, we always wanted the government to get into it, because if government gets into digital payments, they'll tip the scale, right? But now all of a sudden it has to be part of your way of life. There's no, even the doctors themselves, there's no possible near future where they will visit and open the clinics, right? So how do they think about that? So I think you're going to get a lot of investments in health tech, and you're going to see a lot of solutions present itself in the coming months. That's going to be a very exciting space. We're actually very keen on that. But again, it'll be who can have a viable solution and who can gain adoption soonest.
Yeah, no, totally agree. It's exciting. In fact, there are two. When we talk about doctors nowadays, as we started the session honoring doctors, now, there are two types of doctors. And the other day, I was talking to a pharmaceutical company, and it had brought to light the reality that there are two realities, like Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, right? There are doctors on the front lines, and then there are doctors who are sitting at home, can't see patients because they're not frontliners. Pediatricians, for example, they're not there. So all of a sudden, telemedicine, again, necessity is the mother of invention. And the invention here might be less the technology and more the consumer behavior. Telemedicine capabilities was always there. It's not rocket science. It's in a sense what we're doing right now, but nobody wanted to adopt it, right? So maybe necessity is the mother of adoption, not just invention. And that's what we're seeing right now. A lot more adoption, which will spur a lot more invention. It's hard to invent when people are not adopting. So, so thanks for that, Brian. Who else?
Hi, Andre, this is Kat. Let me turn on my video. Yeah, so I actually pivoted my exercise when you gave those two questions. So initially, I was thinking of the same problem that you mentioned earlier, which was, entrepreneurs who have to lay off some of their workforce, because one of my friends is dealing with the exact same problem. But then when you asked those two questions, I kind of thought of something a little closer to home. So the target stakeholder that I identified were the elderly, so like 60 to 65-year-olds and up. And basically, it's really an experience where, my parents, they're in their house and, they live alone. I'm an only child, so no one's really there for them during this time, except for, they have a helper and all that. And they're, the elderly are kind of the least adaptable to, leveraging tech. They're not like, they just learned how to do Facebook video, like messenger video during COVID. Yeah, so they're, they don't know how to do online banking. They don't know how to like check out solutions like Hey Kuya or Metro Mart or all that to do their basic necessities. So what I was really thinking about was they do have a disposable income, especially for the middle to upper class within that range. They do have banking accounts. They have savings, they have retirement, etc. But they can't really transact or do their basic transactions like going grocery shopping, doing banking, even like buying their medicines, etc. And I think the problem is twofold. So first, it's awareness and education about the technology that's out there and how to use it. So they don't know how to work the e-commerce sites most of the time. They're not really that tech savvy. And then another thing is there aren't really solutions within the community. For younger people, it's kind of volunteer and help out the elderly as well. So I was kind of looking at something in those two areas in terms of what impact we can make to help the elderly during this time.
Wonderful, Katrina. Did you, so you got to target stakeholder. I love it. I'm going to comment on that in a little bit. We've heard this a few times over the past couple of CEO challenges. You got to pain points, very well put. And I loved it because you talked about it from your own personal perspective. And of course, all of us can nod our heads because we know this. Now, did you want to share a target impact, like your from to statement? Did you get there?
Yeah, so what I wanted to do was to raise awareness and education primarily. And just for context, I actually come from a marketing and communications background. So a campaign is more, I guess, more intuitive to me.
Okay.
I was thinking about the platforms, right? Like, okay, apps are a little bit difficult. Webinars might be a little bit difficult even. So even things like just emails, websites, videos that you could share on like what is out there, what products they can use, how they can use it, etc.
Well, time out, Katrina. How about this? Listen up. So my from to statement. So I agree with you with regards to target stakeholder, the elderly, the pain points. They don't know about technology. They have other resources actually that would be helpful to them, but the disintermediating pain point is they don't know how to organize and access all these things because a lot of it is digital. And as we say in some, it's hard to teach old dogs new tricks, diba? So because of that, my development, Katrina, with all due respect, would not even try to do an education campaign on them.
Mm-hmm.
How about this? I think you like this. From our elderly being left alone to figure it out themselves to the loved ones of our elderlies being empowered to take care of our elderly. How does that work? I would rather, in my kuya, the way we talked about it and envisioned it, of course, right now, it is just one segment that is being pounded for demand, more demand than we can satisfy. And that is errands. But there was always a higher class of service that you could demand on demand, which is concierge service, for example. We're familiar with concierge, right? Basically, you tell that person, it's higher order, it's errands also, but it's higher order errands. You could pay this salesperson. So what if the campaign was oriented not towards our elderly, but towards you? telling you to basically get a concierge for your elderly parents and let the concierge call them up. They don't have to transact. It's you who mobilizes the concierge service through an app. The concierge merely then goes directly to them, takes care of all their needs here and there. If there's a campaign here, I would target it towards, there's much better chances of impacting our elderly by not trying to teach them new tricks, but rather teaching their loved ones and empowering their loved ones how to help them. That's probably an easier battle to fight than,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So, but,
Yeah.
it's the same end impact, right? We make life better for our elderly. And demographically speaking, when you look at the data, the numbers, that's a pretty good demographic. It's pretty big, the baby boomers. And by the way, that's a global phenomenon. It's probably worse in abroad than here in the Philippines. You know, in the Philippines, we at least take care of our elders. So I don't know. What's your reaction, RV and Katrina? Anybody else? Yeah.
No, I agree, and in fact, my only contrarian comment to that, Andrew, would be, you know, I think before COVID, they were more like that. Yeah, can you just teach Katrina how to do it, or teach my Apo how to do it? We noticed that a lot from the banking space, because we have a lot of the GSIS pensioners are part of our ecosystem. The DepEd school teachers are part of our ecosystem, and we were trying to push a lot of digital services, even our digital branches. But we got a lot of resistance from the older demographic, and it's okay. We wanted to use these touch points, these branches, these digital touch points as a way to also ramp them on, to slowly lead them on to the digital world. What's surprising is when this COVID happened, they in fact are the ones already taking the initiative. Now, yes, there are some things they can offload, but some things like banking is very personal to this generation. We're surprised. They want to be taught how to navigate the app now.
Nobody's gonna see my bank account.
It's money, diba, pare?
Yeah.
I'm gonna decide where to swipe it and send it, right? So they have surprisingly been more willing to learn. And I've gotten calls from some of my elderly titas and titos are like, oh, where's the nearest open UnionBank branch? I want to pay my taxes. I go, tita, just download the app. Stay home. I'll walk you through it. Diba? And they're like, they've never been more motivated than now, which is, I like. And those who are not motivated will definitely motivate their anak or their apo to do it for them. So I'm very encouraged because this demographic is coming up the curve quite fast, and we're going to see a bit of adoption from that segment. So I'm encouraged. In fact, I like your suggestion. We can do My Kuya through their younger, apos or whatever, but some of the other basic services, you'll be surprised. They will want to access themselves.
I mean, I agree with you. I think courses for horses. We're talking about for banking. I see your point. For all the other life's daily necessities, I do see the value of. In fact, I'm gonna get off the phone. When I get off here, I'm gonna get on the phone with Shahab and Farouk of My Kuya. I'm gonna tell them, let's start concierge services, because a lot of oldies are probably gonna need this. Quite apart from all the grocery shopping errands that we're doing. So just a slight commentary. I do appreciate Katrina speaking up and intimating that she changed her mind because of those two questions, which is precisely why I rather experimentally threw those questions in. No? So if I may preach for 30 seconds, quote unquote, this is a 100-hour launch pad. This is about being agile. This is about innovation, solving problems. Again, I propose to you the image of a tree. My favorite tree is an acacia tree, right? You know how it has so many branches. Innovations like that. We can see in UnionBank so many innovations, but there is one root. There is one main trunk and one main root. And that is those questions of genius, purpose, and service. Where is your life's pains and experiences calling you to be more empathetic and compassionate? And this is where I believe that if we want to spur more innovation, that you talk about David Foote. I mean, if you've known him, I don't know too many people, maybe 5 people I can count, who have his grit and persistence, right? He loves what he's doing, not just because he's enjoying it, but he really cares about the problem. If you don't care about the problem, you are not going to be able to tough out innovation, right? Because there's so many dead ends in innovation. But this is a guy who really cares about the problems and the people that he's trying to serve. And I often have to tell David, as I have to tell a lot of the founders that we invest in, you got to take care of yourself. These guys do not stop. They're just so passionate about what they're doing. No? So the roots of innovation, we like to say, the fuel of innovation is compassion. You must care. No? So I hope we can also encourage that, apart from all the tenets of human-centered design or agile, or all these technological breakthroughs. At the root of it is caring about human beings.
Yeah, no. If I can just tie that in, when we at the center of the products we create or the services, when we talk about banking, to be very boring about it, it's the customer experience, and that requires empathy. You have to know what the customer wants to do, what he's trying to go through. If you build your product around customer experience, which is grounded on, empathy, what's the customer thinking, going through, what does he want to do, what are his pain points, frustrations, then you obviously will build something more concrete. But you're right, founders, David, you really, in a time like this, you're going to need more founders like that. And I believe they're the ones who will fuel a lot of the innovation moving forward. They can accelerate, and I think those kind of founders are a little more resilient in these tough times.
True enough, RD. I'm just going to add a point there. I mean, at the start, we talked about Ignite House and how we were in this weird nexus of working with corporates and working with startups like Mike Kuya, David, these types of founders. It is important in the Philippines. We are not Silicon Valley. We have very different variables here. So it is very important when we find the Davids, when we find the Farouks, when we find the Shahabs, that we also have smart, intelligent ways to efficiently link them up with corporate collaborators such as UnionBank. No? Because you control disproportionate amount of resources, market access, capital, technology already, plumbing. Like I said, why does David have to build the Fintech plumbing over and above all the other things that he needs to build? So I think it is very important systematically, from the point of view of Philippine innovation, to be able to support not just the founders, not just the Maverick founders, but to be able to dovetail them with corporates like you guys. No.
And Andre, I think the opportunity also now is, it's not status quo, it's not business as usual. A lot of the founders, like I'm sure, and this is good. I should have a conversation again with David. The different times now. I mean, if you're talking about helping that segment and you want to put forth a solution, you might be surprised at, number one, how much willingness you will get where there was resistance before from other, stakeholders or collaborators.
You're talking about big corporates, no?
Big corporates, even government, even the regulatory approvals, you will be amazed because of the context. And that's where I want to encourage these guys to be more opportunistic. Right? If you're trying to help your nurse or your therapist, you can be sure that any approval, any proposal with that on it will get any stakeholder's attention. And even some of the products we've done in the bank, I know 100 hours to you is for us, that's clearly impossible as a regulated entity to launch anything in 5 days. But we were over this past couple of weeks, we actually launched something in 3 weeks, which for us was a milestone because that includes the regulatory approval of the BSP, that includes our board approval. We cannot release anything to the market unless it's been approved by the board and approved by the central bank. So you can imagine 3 weeks for us is a huge win, right?
Wow, that's amazing.
A lot of the things that allowed it to push through is that you were, in fact, presenting priority projects that could help the country, the situation. So I encourage any CEO and founder there with that kind of grit and that kind to look and see, okay, pre-COVID, these things weren't a priority, but you might be surprised if you escalate it now. You might be surprised how fast you can get things through. And my surprise, Andre, is more about the collaborativeness in nature. It was about some of the things we did span 5 or 6 institutions. I mean, yeah, purely API based, but that kind of collaboration is in 3 weeks. It's, you know,
Unheard of. Unheard of. Like, I think we've been coining a phrase here where necessity is the mother of adoption as well. And collaboration is an adoption. It's a behavior that people were hesitant to be in. No, no, I'll do it here. No, you do it in your own conglomerate. I'll do it in my own conglomerate. But again, it's one of those behaviors that suddenly getting adopted. I do fully agree. Thank you for bringing it up. I will encourage our founders to do this, no. But yung bang pag may puso yung pinag-uusapan mo, titirahin yan, people will be willing to cooperate now. And that's the good thing about Filipinos, no? And I think about human beings in general. But conversely, madali makalimot ang mga tao, di ba? So strike while the iron is hot.
yes.
Strike those collaborations, jump in, solve these problems while it's hot, because people have a way around here of forgetting and all that. Yeah, go ahead.
If I can lang, the building though, if I can just caution, Andre, it's difficult to build something from scratch now. Well, again, context, no? Maybe for you guys that, have your complete tech teams and all that, yes. But I think, again, it's also good to rethink, do I have to rebuild anything from scratch?
Yeah.
The first instance will always be, try to see what you can make use of already in the market. Because if they're just linkages, if that's exactly what collaboration is, it's connecting me to you,
yeah,
with existing infrastructure, existing documentation, existing technology, that's going to be much faster than trying to do everything from zero. Diba? Pero magaling naman tayo dyan eh. Magaling naman yung mga Pinoy sa gawa ng paraan eh. And this is the time to do it. It's just that if you're gonna stitch things together, just make sure the tech is sound, but definitely strike while the iron is hot, but pick and choose existing capabilities, your strengths, rather than starting from zero.
Well, I having heard you, RV, I'm very happy after this to call up our portfolio companies, talk to our founders, and to even some of our corporate partners, and figure out how we can collaborate with you guys in particular, with your team in particular. No? How can David Foot get on the table again with you? What can we do, to help each other? My kuya also and all that.
Happy to
yeah.
connect to the. We have a huge ecosystem. You obviously those for me speaks towards a customer base. So we have many different customers in different socioeconomic segments that we can market to. We have technology capabilities that we can probably work on together, or even basic banking infrastructure rails, if we can make that easier for you and your startups and your portfolio companies. Happy to help. I mean, our model kasi really, we're obviously not the biggest bank, Andre, and we don't have the resources and the reach. So we very early on thought that our strategy should be about enabling other groups and communities. And so if we enable those groups and let them service their target markets, I think we'll be more effective than trying to go one by one. And that's all in our strategy.
Exactly. All right, so we are, for those of you who are following, pinned on Ignite House, you will see that there is a countdown. We have 20 minutes left on this first 2 hours of the 100-hour Launchpad Challenge. I am thrilled with the ideas, the zones of opportunities that we've been hearing about so far. We'd love to continue.
Great.
Yeah, Miguel, please.
No, I was just thinking, like, I guess more like fundamentally, the last 4 or 5 years of doing a lot of like digital transformation stuff, observing, like companies. I mean, like if there's anything that I learned around this whole digitization thing, it's something I saw a lot when with the work that I'd had to do with you guys, UnionBank, is that fundamentally when we're designing all these things, when we're creating these new infrastructure, I think there has to be a conscious realization that trust is a design element that we have to design for. And this goes deeper than just the customer needs, but really looking deeply that, I mean, you're having people buy into something that they're not comfortable with. Although now they're kind of forced, So I'm actually interested to see if more people will be forced to trust these things. But like, if you just look at the example of blockchain, the fact that it's going to be, it's an open system, it's fully traceable, and trust then for any system that's going to use something like blockchain. It's an important thing that as creators, inventors, designers, you have to be conscious of that first and foremost, fundamentally, if you're not designing with making people trust these systems, it won't fly. Yes, now it's forced, but like it's very, very important. And like that's something I've really been pushing with a lot of the companies, that I used to work with, is that focus on that fundamental need around being able to trust something new. And that has to be a foundational thing for whether it be fintech, healthcare, anyone that gets into tech.
I agree fully, and it's good that you brought that up, Miguel, because if you think about it, that is really the main asset of the bank, the trust that we have with the and we don't take that lightly. In fact, we are very proud to be a regulated entity covered first by the central bank and then next by the SEC. And this regulation or this regulatory cover for us is an advantage, and we embrace completely. Our regulators are very open-minded. We will always engage them in discussions because if we have the regulatory seal of approval, that means we've done more than our homework, and the consumers can be confident that the interests are protected, their assets are protected. So, and it gives us a unique position. I think as a bank, that's a responsibility that falls solely on us, but it's also an opportunity to look out and say, look, I can be, if I'm trusted in banking, will I also be trusted to keep your identity safe? If I keep your money safe, can I keep your identity safe? If I keep that identity safe, will you trust me if I work with this healthcare platform, right? So we do operate on the basis of being custodians of trust for the personal information of the customer, his funds, his processes, even his IP, diba? So we build on that. And you're very right. Whenever we create new products and services, it's always with the customer experience at the center, but definitely around that is the element of trust, because it doesn't matter what we build if they don't trust us. You're not gonna put your money with us, right? And at the end of the day, when we look at wallets, fintechs, this is where we get our confidence. You're not gonna keep your millions of hard-earned pesos in a wallet. I'm sorry, no matter what the wallet is, regulations will only cover you for, X amount, diba? PDIC, security and all that. So you would keep all your money preferably, probably in a bank. So until that changes, we realize that we're the custodian of money, but we have to enable. You want to work with this wallet? Sure. You want to work with this bank? Sure. It's your money. You should be able to freely move it, right? Which is why, again, I talk about the digital infra to do that. But totally on the ball there, Miguel. Trust is key. And I think many fintechs and startups, I hope, don't forget about that, because even if they're not a bank, even more so, the element of trust, it's a question mark for most of them, and they take it for granted. We are happy to work with them, and by the time we offer these solutions to our customers, the thinking is simple, diba, Andre? Oh yeah, it's Union Bank. If he's offering it in his app, it must be safe and good, right? So we go through that due diligence precisely to protect our customers. But yeah, trust, spot on, definitely.
Thanks for bringing that up, Miguel. Well, we're down to 15 minutes. I'd love to hear from through 3-4 more of our union bankers here. Miguel, maybe we can scan the chat boxes as well in case I see 57 chat messages. Maybe there are some people who fielded questions or comments via chat.
Yeah, let me check.
Yeah. Harvey, anybody else? Who should we call on next? Who should we pick on next?
Since Miguel spoke about blockchain, I think we should pick on Kathy Casas to come on board. Kathy.
Hi. Okay, so I'm sorry, but even if I am with the blockchain team, actually mine is also a bit personal. So like Brian. So nothing blockchain, something very basic, I guess, for parents like me who work from home. So like Brian and Kat, I didn't actually look that far to search for like potential stakeholders for what I have in mind. So during the solo workout this morning, the first thing that actually came to my mind is to have sort of this homeschool, big school hybrid. So like a platform or service or a new educational process, I guess, that will allow for teachers and parents to equally contribute to the education and character formation of our kids. So my target stakeholder here are actually work at home moms and parents. And my key pain points, the pain points that I've identified are, well, one, I'm a working mom. I love my kids so much, but I have to work to give them a comfortable, secure life, and the best education to prepare them for the future. Second, I'm serious about my career, but I'm also serious about raising good kids. And for both, for you to be good at both, you need to give them significant, well, investment, more time. And at this point, even if I'm working at home, I realize that it's still difficult to balance both work and family because I have to attend to a lot of calls and meetings. Well, even if, for example, pre-COVID, this COVID situation, we send them to school. They get educated, but we also feel guilty for delegating everything to the teacher and to the school. So now that I'm working at home, it feels weird that it didn't feel like I was able to spend more time with them. I have limited capacity to teach, not comprehensive. I have no time to prepare for activity sheets, and I see them, but interaction, both quantity and quality, hasn't really increased. So in terms of target impact, I'm seeing that. So just a bit of history. Um, 2 years ago, I decided to well, everybody in Union Bank knows this. I decided to explore and move out of a very sort of sought after job in the bank. And one of the biggest reasons at the time has something to do with my kids, partly influenced by a book I read at the time about how the world is changing exponentially, and that if we don't acquire, so this was 3 years ago, if we don't acquire the skills we need for the future of work, then it reduces our capability to be able to contribute to the future. And if we don't act now, a lot of signs are actually pointing to a default future that is very demanding, characterized by solitude and fear. And I always like to go back to this principle that if you want to change the world, you always have to start with your family. So I think this would result to like having well-rounded kids, smart, confident kids with closer family ties, less stressful for everyone. And I think the impact will also be across, well, it will span across industries because you will have a more engaged and effective workforce, not only for today, but I think also for the future. So that's all from me.
Yeah, Kathy, that's wonderful. I mean, I think the notion you brought up of homeschool, the combination of big school and homeschool, I'd always sort of thought of it as one or the other, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be. And certainly this is something that a lot of us are struggling with. It's a weird experience working from home in my case, but not really being home because I'm working too much. I'm stuck in my cave here. I rarely see my kids. But the same thing is happening in their end of their end of their lives, where they are. I mean, we're not homeschoolers, but obviously a lot more people are exposed to that. But then you give up certain elements of big school when you're homeschooling. How do you replicate both? And to your bigger point that, again, changing the world, start with your own family, very well put. So I guess it's a question of, as you put it, you have a full-time job already, and you're a full-time family person also. Do you have anything left to pursue this target, this zone of opportunity, which is a very important consequence to the world. I mean, you don't have to answer that. But ultimately, in this exercise that we're all going through, we have to ask ourselves these questions, these ideas, these opportunities, these target stakeholders, these pains, these visions of impact that we have. Do we have the means to act on it? How might we become a force for making them happen? I think this is a good segue. And I would invite RV first of all, and then maybe our colleagues in UnionBank to reflect, because like I said, part of this is about ideas that can be outputted into ventures. Well and good. We heard a lot of great ideas. I hope some of this, I intend to follow up with RV personally on some of these ideas so that we can bring them to fruition, whether they're actual products or solutions or they're actual collaborations. No? But the other objective of this Launchpad challenge is the process and discipline that we just experienced today. Obviously not in its full entirety, but I would like to ask as a point of reflection, what did we learn today in terms of process, in terms of discipline, about innovation that maybe we hadn't known before, or maybe we knew before, but came into more emphasis, became more pronounced in today's experience, as a point of reflection so that we can carry it over in the way we do our work.
Okay, let me start. So if you ask me, my reflection today just, I guess, validates that, you know, innovation, transformation, all of this is definitely more mindset. If you look at it that way. Mindset and context. I think that's what will be very important. It's not technology. Technology can always be bought, pieced together. It's not money. It's really the how to and the proper thinking around it. I also worry because many are still not in touch with the current context and reality. So if your innovation or transformation requirements or mindset is in that mode, but not really connected with what's available, what's capable, then you could also not achieve your goal. So I think it goes back to that, being very familiar with your context, with your reality, with your capabilities, and it goes exactly to what you zeroed in the workout, which was, who are the stakeholders, what are the key pain points, and from and to. I mean, I think that very much zeroed in on that. And when you do that and reflect on that, it's very clear to me that it's very much about where you are in terms of your appreciation of where to go and what the current situation is.
Good. Who else? Who has reflections from UnionBank about what we learned or what came into emphasis today from the experience that we had?
Andre?
Please.
Yeah, maybe this is just continuing what RV was talking about, that 2-week project earlier. We had a debrief yesterday with the rest of the team that worked on it. And we were trying to really analyze what worked and why it worked so fast. The development team particularly pointed out that they knew what they wanted to do, and they kind of tried to figure out what assets the bank had. And they identified the Fintech group as having that network, that really the mindset of being able to tap its network and utilizing the skill of everyone in the team, not just within the group, but within the bank. So it's really preparedness. It's not just understanding what context you're in, but what was emphasized was that the bank was prepared to actually handle the situation more than other institutions, I guess. So it helped a lot in making that project work that fast.
Who is this, Shell?
Yes, this is Cell.
Sel, thank you for that. So I would like to reflect if I understood you correctly. No? Kasi you mentioned that in the debrief, what people were able to point out to, in particular the dev team, was your group, RB's group, Fintech groups, particular strengths. In this case, the network, I can see from having interacted with RB as the personification of your team that he's very collaborative, that talks about context. You can't collaborate if you don't understand other people's context.
Yes, exactly.
Without context, puro transaction lang yan, and that's never good for collaboration. No? So you have to understand people's context. And I can understand now the strengths of your team as a fintech team. I would just like to, as my throw on top of your reflection, go back to the question that the extra two questions, the first of the extra two questions that we threw in the middle of your solo workout, which is this, because this is what you're talking about. Life as we know it can change so drastically so fast. The world now has so many new needs in our new normal. The question is, what can I give? What is it in me that is good, that is gifted, that remains in me no matter how much the world changes, that will allow me to stay relevant and keep being a force for good? Yesterday, today, tomorrow, and for many tomorrows after. Now, one could ask this of oneself, or one could ask this of one's team. And I think when you look at your team, clearly you have a progressive, context-based culture that has empathy, that has compassion for the people around it. And that is your network. And that is why your network works. And that is why you could count on your network to, if I haven't said this enough, congratulations to all of you for that 3-week sprint. I mean, in the context of the banking industry, that is nothing short of a miracle. So thank you for bringing that up, Sel. More reflections, please. Let me call on Patricia. Was it Patricia? The one who talked about the elderly. Are you still there?
Hi, yeah, it's Katrina, or you can call me Kat, actually.
Yeah. Well, I had a question for you, but you're also free to share your learnings now. You had a curious point, which I suspect a lot of other colleagues of yours might have also experienced, which is when you did the first round versus the second round of the solo workout, the questions triggered a change in you. What was that like, and why did you give in to that shift? Describe to us that, plus any other learnings you might have had.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I changed it was when I was first thinking about the 3 points, I was thinking more in terms of like a problem-solving kind of mindset, about like what are the challenges I know that exist out there. But then after you read the questions, I kind of thought about what kind of impact I would like to make to the target stakeholders that I care most about. So I guess it kind of changed from something that was, I guess, more, in my head, I guess, kind of thinking about things in a more logical, rational way, to then thinking about a problem that I'm more passionate about, I guess, or more connected to.
And what would that kind of shift possibly mean for your ability to innovate?
Yeah, I mean, like, when you care about something more, I guess you become like more obsessive about, serving that target stakeholder, or, constantly evaluating what you're doing and whether or not it's meeting the objectives. So I guess when you're driven by passion, it also kind of leads to a better product or a better initiative, I guess.
Yeah. Did you want to share anything else?
No, I think the only thing that I had like a comment was, I like the, really drilling it down to the basics. I mean, those three points, it seems very simple, but when you actually sit down and think about it, sometimes you lose sight of the basics that you need to get down to lay that foundation. And it was nice to kind of do this exercise and bring us back to that.
It's funny you talk about the basics, because as I'm doing a just top of my head stream of consciousness reflection on the zones of opportunities we talked about today, a lot of them went back to basics. We talked about neighbors, our elderly relatives, our health, the education of our kids. So it brings you back to basics, and maybe that's what the pandemic has also stripped us off or down to, is back to the basics, the most important things in life, a lot of which need solving, by the way.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Katrina. Harvey, I'll let you have the final word to wrap this up. This is, after all, your team. What is our message to them?
Well, if you'll allow me, I wanted to ask you first, actually, Andre, because you've done this for quite some time and you've spoken to a lot of CEOs, and what is, based on all those conversations, I mean, depending on what you can reveal, maybe you can talk to us about how's the mood been. Have they been generally optimistic? Are they pessimistic? What have your conversations with different business leaders over this past couple of weeks? What can you tell us about their mindset, I guess?
Sure. Okay, thanks for giving me that chance. No, yeah. So besides doing these 100-hour CEO challenges where we interface with a lot of leaders, one of the things I've made a practice of in the last 30 days, which is I never really could think of the exact inflection point when I decided to do it. I think I just decided to do it, and then it became a practice, which I intend to continue. Is every day I've picked up the phone and I've spoken to at least 2 leaders. A lot of them have been CEOs, different industries. Partly just checking up, shooting the breeze. The other part of it is I had standard questions, which were not very academic questions. They were very practical. Oh, what's going on in your business? What's your top concern? Are your people going to work? If they're not going to work, what are they doing at home? And I found that a lot of them would just gloss over that question. They would go back to, oh, my cash flows, oh, my sales, oh, my marketing. They would go back to the operational aspects of their value chain. Meanwhile, which to me was very curious, because meanwhile, your people, whether you're open or not, I mean, there happens to be some businesses there that are still operating, and actually thriving from a cash flow perspective in this, because they're so badly needed. But nobody seems to be thinking about the fact that a lot of their workforce is at home, and programmatically, how do you turn these 30 days or 45 days or however many number of days it's going to be cumulatively into days of thunder, days of growth? Because if we just stayed at home and continued to work the way we work, even though it's new setups, in other words, if we don't grow internally in our capacity, the world has changed. We implicitly, mathematically, have gotten left behind if we did not grow ourselves. No? So staying in place is getting left behind. And that is first and foremost a people thing. So there have been more insightful leaders, a handful, I would say, not even a third, that I talked to. And even when I explicitly bring up people, they're thinking about other things. They're not thinking about how to maximize and optimize their people. And I think it's coming to a head because of this. No matter what you do, by April 30, businesses have to seriously think about the restart. You cannot just sit here and deal with whatever the new normal gave you. You have to proactively now restart your business to operate in the new normal. And when you do that, a number of things come to mind. As you said, biggest order of battle is to stabilize, cash, turn it into a positive flow again for many businesses. What does that mean? That means stabilizing and restarting the various aspects of the value chain. the supply chain, operations, product, distribution, sales, marketing. You need to restart all of those and to make sure those are functioning in the new normal optimally, which is obviously not going to be the same as the way it was pre-pandemic. Now comes the people question. If your people, just in order to be able to restart the various aspects of the value chain, who's going to do that? Is it going to be you, the CEO? It's going to have to be your people. But you have to restart your people as well, because this is very different. Humanly speaking, we have just, I don't know about you, but I've never experienced anything like this. And nobody I've talked to has experienced anything like this. So you can't just tell your head of this or your VP of that on the day you restart, okay, let's restart, huh? You've got to restart them as human beings. And if you're not doing that now, guess what? They're already behind. And it's hard to restart in this time and place. So I think the mantra of people first, we're in the business of innovation. I'm in venture capital, but I say people first. It's always been people first. Even in innovation, who's going to innovate? It's not technology. Technology is not going to innovate itself. Sorry, AI is not yet there, right? It's people who are going to innovate. It's people who are going to say, these are the people we need to serve. These are their pains, and this is what we're going to do. And it's people and teams who are going to do that. And if your people are lost or they fell behind in this great pandemic, which is a great pandemic of the world moving on, I don't know how you're going to start your supply chain, your operations, your customer service, your sales and marketing if you can't first of all restart your people. And the hardest of all to restart in these conditions is to restart your people, right? I don't know what your views are about that. Maybe you can feed back to me if I'm hallucinating, making this up, or if I'm actually talking about the reality that you're dealing with as well.
No, definitely. I mean, even before all of this, when we spoke about our transformation journey and we shared our story, like I told you earlier, it is because it was hard to operate as digital and your customers are analog, right? But, even a lot of the transformation evangelization, if you will, that we were doing, really focused on it's a mindset thing, but it's a people thing. And this is going to be, even before COVID, the digital transformation is something that we felt was in fact, the human resource officer should be your chief transformation officer, because it's not tech, it's people, it's mindset. And when I look at our own journey, it was because we painstakingly prepared the organization, the people, and the processes to precisely, I mean, we might not call it work from home. We've been practicing Agile for a very long time. But, we had the basic elements that when work from home came, it was possible. But that's not to say that it doesn't do a number on your head and your people. And I think everyone is trying to figure that out as well. I'm very fortunate that I work with a great team, and these guys, are very independent. They're very hardworking. They're very passionate. So we are held together by our purpose, and that allows us to navigate these uncertainties. Like, oh, this project's no longer priority. Yeah, I mean, does it help towards the purpose of enabling a community? Is it, very COVID-centric? We're able to adapt because we're anchored on a purpose. And I think, that's where you might see some struggle, and you have to handhold a lot of these companies now. They don't know why they do things. So when things are shut,
Yeah.
their default is cash flow. Their default is, it's, wait, why are we doing what we do? What are we here for, diba? We're enabling this community of teachers. Okay, so everything we do should be about making their lives easier. Is it fulfilling that purpose? It's easy to go back when you have purpose. So, and of course that's always hinged on people. That's the part that I really don't have an answer for, Andre, and I'm very honestly, I'm very worried for that middle segment. That's why I was telling you I like to focus on those who are a little more sure, a little more ready, because I can help them immediately. And for those in the middle who are just trying to get themselves standing, happy to help them. We call them every day. We ask them, how are we doing? How's your business? How can we help you more? And so it varies, but basically it's those who are striving for survival and those who are just, fine and ready to think about the next thing. But definitely it'll come down to people again. And that's going to be the most challenging part of coming out of this, how the mindset of the Filipino and the CEOs will be. But I do hope that people will be a little more like that. It's relationship based. I mean, I can attest to what you do. It's nice to talk to smart people every day, right? You call them up, you find out what's going on, you refresh yourself, you get a context. But I don't think we're at a point yet where we know exactly the way forward. We haven't even outlined an after quarantine work policy, but that has to happen.
Yeah.
So as these things begin to be a little more clear, then I think you'll see the Filipino people a little more confident, and then we can actually start to move forward and capitalize on these opportunities.
Right. So, RV, thank you very much. Let me end with these 2 points before saying thank you to you and your team. First point, as a reflection on what you just said. Again, based on our own experience dealing with so many other companies, what I've seen personally in these past 30 days is you can't be who you're not. The way your team is performing now is because that's really the way you are. The underperforming teams and CEOs right now are underperforming because that was always who they were. They were not prepared. And the ones that are performing, that are in a business unusual situation where nothing is business as usual now, they can still find a path to value as usual. There's business as usual that's destroyed, but you can still provide value as usual or value unusual. And you can't do that if you were weak to begin with, if you weren't practicing all these things that, for example, your team is practicing. So bad times like this just bring to bear who you really are. And then my second thing is a personal reflection to you, RV, and the way of experience you and your team is as you, and let's go back to that visual that I had brought up a while ago of concentric circles, no? With you and your team in the middle now of that concentric circle, and you have to reach out to a network, an ecosystem of various stakeholders who have to be equally where you are digitally. No? Otherwise, you're constrained in terms of your impact and ability to be effective. So obviously you do that, RV, with your toolkit, and part of your core toolkit is all these fintech capabilities, as well as the processes of your team. No? But since we talked about people, I wonder, RV, if as a challenge, you can start looking at yourself as UnionBank's fintech group, and as you reach out to the next concentric circles and the various players and partners that you have there, both internal to you in UnionBank and external to you, if you could also reach out and make it part of your armory, your skill sets, this fundamental grounding on people, and how do you ground people on purpose, on meaning, on service, because that becomes then the common language and the common praxis by which you can all work together, besides just the common plumbing of digital banking and this technology or that technology. Is what I'm saying is you could also offer this people mindset that seems to have worked for you as a way of reaching out to the outer and outer circles so that everyone can be more aligned. Because as we I think discussed, if you start from technology or finance, you miss out at the end of the day on the core of it that makes it actually a lot easier to work out, which is your audit and service. So with that, I would like to, on behalf of my team, on behalf of Miguel, I'm sure he has had as much fun as I did. On behalf of Karen and our backstage crew, we have the Ignite team, RV, and the UnionBank team. We are very grateful to have spent this Friday morning with you, and wish you well.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
as well, Andre, Miguel, and Grace, Karen, the rest of the team. You know, it's been a good dialogue. I think the team also appreciated getting this discussion going. And, you know, we appreciate the way you took us through the process, and, you know, the framing really helps as well. And also very interesting to see how we're aligned in many different ways. So very refreshing to align with an old batchmate.
And let's continue to align. We will be in touch with specific points for action, no? Whether it's Zenya or My Kuya or a few other things. These things sometimes take time to sink in. RV, saludo sa'yo. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.